After the sports festival, the students were given a few days off in which Toga and Izuku only trained the two with their weapons. Izuku with his katana, with which he was able to be faster by combining the sword technique with his wind quirk and could improve the power of the blows by combining it with his fire quirk. Toga trained with his blades and with his blood-sucking machine. Izuku, we're back to the same old boring routine, he said dejectedly on the train. Toga, don't complain, he said, giving Izuku a sniff. Extra, hey, are you Izuku Midorilla from Class 1A? He said with doubt. Izuku, hey? Yes, I offer, he said, confused. Extra, great job at the sports festival, you're the best, he said, raising his thumb. Izuku, yes, thank you, he said, smiling. Extra 2, you won the festival, you're great, he said with a smile. Extra 3, you, Himiko Toga, won several tests without using your quirk. You're amazing, she said, encouraging the blonde. Toga, thanks, she said, a little embarrassed by the compliment. The journey continued as usual, with passengers praising our couple, who were already feeling a little overwhelmed by so many compliments, but luckily they had already arrived. Izuku, we're finally here, he said, breathing deeply. Toga, yes, but it's nice to be recognized, she said it again, taking a deep breath. Ida, Midorilla-kun, Toga-san, good morning, he said, running. Izuku/Toga, good morning Ida-kun, they said, returning the greeting. Ida, you should hurry, you'll be late, he said without stopping running. Izuku, but there are still 5 minutes left until the first bell rings, he said, starting to run. Ida, UA students should always arrive 10 minutes early, he said, speeding up his walk. Toga, you're always so attached to the rules, she said mockingly as she ran. The three of them, having been running all the way, arrived at the UA very tired. Izuku, Ida-kun, can I ask you a question? He said, worried about his friend. Ida, if it's about my brother, don't worry. He's out of mortal danger, but he won't be able to be a hero again, he said, forcing a smile. Toga, why? She said, equally worried. Ida, he was attacked by the hero killer, they managed to keep him alive but his legs were left immobile, he said, lowering his head. Izuku, if you want, I can cure him, he said with a smile. Ida, I don't think it's possible, her ligaments were destroyed, he said, shedding a few tears but with a smile. Izuku, if he's alive I can heal him, remember I can even return lost limbs? He said, smiling. Ida, are you sure? If it's true, please cure my brother, he said, bowing. Izuku, get up Ida-kun, we are friends after all, he said with a warm smile. Toga, your talk was very nice, but we'll be late, she said, running again. The race started again and the three of them ran to their living room. Izuku, we're finally here, he said, entering the living room. Toga, yes, and it's a good thing Mama Caterpillar hasn't arrived yet, she said it anyway, entering the room. Ida, yes, thanks Midorilla-kun, if you can we can go after school, he said, looking at Izuku with a smile. Izuku, of course, I have nothing to do, he said, laughing. Mina, where do they have to go? She said curiously. Izuku, seeing an opportunity to tease Toga for hitting him on the train, began to speak. Izuku, it's a secret, sweetheart, he said, winking. Mina blushed and looked away while Izuku laughed until he felt a sinister presence behind him. Toga, Itsu-kun, he said behind Izuku with a smile. Izuku, tell me Miko-chan what happened? He said, sweating cold. Toga, we'll talk later, for now you're safe because Aizawa arrived, she said, going to her seat. Izuku, I don't regret anything, he said it in his thoughts. Aizawa, good morning, he said, heading to his desk. Everyone, good morning, they said in unison. Aizawa, well today we'll have a special hero computer class, he said, smiling. Kaminari, an exam, I hope not, he said in his thoughts. Kirishima, I'm bad with laws related to heroes and such, he said, frightened. Aizawa, code names today will decide your hero name, he said, bored. Everyone, we'll do something exciting, they said happily. Aizawa, silence, he said, activating his quirk. Everyone stood still and silent because of their teacher's intimidating aura. Aizawa, a heroine will help you with your choice, so wake me up when you're done, he said, getting into his sleeping bag. The students were going to ask which heroine was going to help them, but at that moment Midnight entered the room. Midnight, I'll help you choose your names because some of them are recognized by society and end up becoming professional heroes, she said, walking sensually. All the men stared at Midnight a little blushed except Todoroki, Bakugo, and Izuku, Todoroki and Bakugo out of disinterest but Izuku out of survival. Midnight, okay, on these little boards, write down the names of the heroes you want, and I'll decide if it's acceptable, she said, giving him some small tablets. Everyone started writing down whatever names they wanted, and after about 10 minutes Midnight spoke again. Midnight, okay, those who finished, start presenting your names, she said calmly. Kirishima, we have to introduce them, he said nervously. Kirishima, it's embarrassing. He said it between nervous and stupid. None of the students wanted to pass, but Aoyama did and stood on the desk. Aoyama, here I go, twinkling hero, I can't stop twinkling, which means I can't stop my shine, he said, raising his little blackboard. Everyone, one sentence, they said in surprise. Midnight, you can erase the I and change the can not to can't, he said, rewriting it on Aoyama's blackboard. Everyone, is that okay? They said, impressed. Mina, I'll follow the hero name, Alien Queen, she said excitedly, approaching the desk and raising her small blackboard. Midnight, you're trying that acidic blood thing, stop, she said with a surprised face. Everyone, idiot, they whispered. Izuku, since the first names were strange it feels like we should make it fun. Tsuyu, then I can be next, she said raising her hand. Midnight, go ahead Tsuyu-chan, she said happily. Tsuyu, the truth is, I've been thinking about it since I was a child, my name will be Froppy, she said while showing her little blackboard. Midnight, how cute and friendly, I like it, she said smiling. Everyone breathed a sigh and started celebrating Tsuyu's name. As the load lightened, everyone took the courage to come forward and say their name. Some were still strange, but most were accepted. I don't know what name I could give Toga, leave your ideas lol. Toga had already given her name but Izuku's was missing. She went to see what he was doing and saw him still thinking, and to get revenge on him for having flirted with Mina she decided to play a joke on him. Toga, Izu-kun, you don't have your name, he said with a somewhat suspicious smile. Izuku, no, I still don't know which one to use. It took me 8 years to name my quirk and thinking of a hero name in 10 minutes stresses me out, he said, looking at Toga. Toga, and if you use the ones you came up with as a kid, if I remember correctly, they were Mighty All Man. Mighty Boy. All Might Jr., he said it out loud so everyone could hear them. Izuku, wait Miko-chan, that's a secret, he said embarrassed, trying to stop Toga. Toga, hee, why don't you like Captain All Might or Super All Might, she said laughing at Izuku's embarrassed face. Kaminari, so those were the hero names you had in mind, he said laughing. Kirishima, you're a big All Might fan, he said, laughing as well. Everyone started laughing, even Midnight and Aizawa, who was laughing in his sleep. Izuku just hung his head in embarrassment and didn't say anything, because he knew why Toga had exposed him. Izuku, that's cruel, Miko-chan, he said in a low voice. Toga, haha, you asked for it by making me angry, she said laughing. Izuku, I guess so, but this is too much, he said, hiding his face in a book. Midnight, haha, well, all that's missing is you, Midorilla-kun, what name are you going to use? She said, still letting out small laughs. Izuku, yes, I have it, he said, going to the desk. Kaminari, he'll use one of those names Toga-san said, he said, still laughing a little. Kirishima, I hope if I use it would be fun, he said laughing too. Izuku, my name is going to be DEKU, he said with a smile and raising his blackboard. Everyone remained silent until Kirishima asked. Kirishima, hey Izu bro, you do know that means useless right? He said surprised. Kaminari, even though your AM names were ridiculous, I think it's a bit much to call you useless considering your abilities. He said it equally surprised. Izuku, hee at first I hated this nickname because Bakugo gave it to me to make fun of me since my quirk awakened 2 years after it should have and they thought I was quirkless, but after those 2 years I met a person who changed the meaning. She told me that DEKU does not mean useless, that DEKU means you can do it, that inspired me to improve every day. Thanks to her I am what I am now, he said rubbing the back of his head with a melancholic smile. Midnight, it's a simple name, but it has a great story behind it," she said excitedly. Izuku gave a big smile and went to sit in his seat. "Izuku, hee, how about my name Miko-chan?" he said smiling. Toga didn't want to look Izuku in the eyes because, so to speak, she felt bad for humiliating him in class, and after that, Izuku implied that she was his inspiration to keep improving. "Izuku, something's wrong, Miko-chan," he said a little worried. "Toga, Edo Izu-kun, sorry," he said hiding his face. "Izuku, hey? Why?" he said confused. "Toga, well, for humiliating you a few moments ago," she said, looking at Izuku. "Izuku, have I humiliated myself?" "Ha, don't worry, lighten the mood," he said, hugging Toga. "Toga, but..." Poom was interrupted by a kiss. "Izuku, hee, don't worry about that anymore. Besides, it's also my fault for trying to bother you when we entered the classroom," he said smiling. The two of them stopped talking and continued with their normal classes until the end. "Izuku, Ida, let's go," he said grabbing his backpack. "Ida, yes, let's go, Midorilla-kun, and thanks again," he said it anyway, grabbing his briefcase. "Izuku, hee, you're welcome, come on Miko-chan," he said, grabbing Toga's hand. "Toga, yes, let's go," she said with a smile. The three of them went to the hospital where Ida's brother was. "Tensei, hello brother, nice to see you," he said with a smile. "Ida, brother, I found a way for you to continue being a hero," he said excitedly. "Tensei, which one?" he said surprised. "Ida, a friend, his quirk is amazing," he said happily. "Tensei, yeah? What's your quirk?" he said smiling. "Izuku, hello, my quirk is called God's Hands," he said proudly. "Tensei, can you heal me?" he said a little hopefully. "Izuku, it'll be simple," he said approaching Tensei. "Tensei, then please heal me," he said a little happily. Izuku approached the stretcher where Tensei was, put his hand on his chest and began to heal him. After about 10 seconds Izuku spoke again. "Izuku, ready? You can move," he said smiling. Tensei began to walk, and at that moment his parents and a doctor came in, who were surprised to see such a scene. "Father, Tensei, how is that possible? The doctors said you wouldn't be able to move your legs again," he said, surprised. The mother just remained silent, she was too shocked to utter words. "Doctor, exactly, according to the tests, all your ligaments were torn, a healing quirk shouldn't be enough," he said, surprised. "Tensei, it was thanks to Tenya's friend's quirk," he said happily as he walked. "Doctor, hey, you're the guy who won the sports festival. I didn't think your quirk was true," he said, surprised. "Ida, thank you for healing my brother Midorilla-kun," he said with a bow. "Father/mother, thank you for curing our son. We are very grateful," they said while bowing. "Izuku, hee, it was nothing, it's good to help a friend," he said smiling. "Tensei, thank you Midorilla-san, thanks to you I'll be able to continue being a hero," he said happily. "Izuku, it wasn't anything serious, well I'm leaving. If I'm late, my mother will kill me," he said, trembling a little. "Toga, well we're leaving, have a nice afternoon," he said pulling Izuku. "Ida, thanks Midorilla-kun, see you tomorrow at school," he said smiling. "Izuku, yes, hee, see you tomorrow," he said as he left the room. "Toga, okay, let's fly away. If we get there too late, and Inko will kill us," she said as she climbed onto Izuku's back. "Izuku, if you're right, let's go," he said, starting to fly with Toga on his back. Izuku and Toga flew home, but when they arrived they found Inko with a spoon waiting for them. "Inko, wow, they disappear for like 2 hours and don't even answer my messages," she said smiling. "Izuku, we went to help an injured friend," he said trembling. "Inko, and tell me why you weren't answering my calls or messages," she said, approaching both of them. "Toga, we're out of battery," she said, trembling. "Inko, so that was it, well, it doesn't matter, they're still going to get their punishment," she said, pulling them both into the house. In the green-haired house, all you could hear were screams and cries for help, but the neighbors knew what it was about, so to avoid getting into trouble with Inko, they just ignored the screams. Izuku and Toga were talking in class with some of their classmates. "Kirishima, they haven't given us our internship applications yet. What do you think happened? He said, looking at everyone. Kaminari, I don't know, but I hope they deliver them today. He said with a smile. Izuku, yes, I think that today, Mama Caterpillar will let us know about the internships. He said smiling. Toga, yes, I created it too. He said, smiling as well. Mina, you're always smiling, your faces never get sore. She said hesitantly. Izuku, no ha. He said smiling again. They were going to continue talking but a wild Aizawa appears accompanied by Midnight. Aizawa, silence. He said tiredly. Everyone fell silent and sat down in an orderly manner to pay attention. Aizawa, okay, I forgot to tell you about your internships yesterday, so you're going to choose them today. First, here are the total offers. He said, pressing a control. Requests. Midorilla, 6,031 Toga, 5,204 Todoroki, 3,123 Bakugo, 2,556 Tokoyami, 360. Aizawa, in previous years it was more evenly matched, but this year everyone is focused on those four, especially Midorilla and Toga. He said, pointing at the board. Kaminari, that's a big difference. He said with a sigh. Midnight, they have requests from different heroes, for example 13, who focuses on disaster rescues rather than attacks on villains. She said, raising a finger. Aizawa, so think carefully about which one to go to. He said, handing over the sheets. Izuku, because there have to be so many. He said sadly, lifting a box full of leaves. Toga, don't complain. She said it anyway, holding up a small box. Aizawa, choose before the week is over. He said as he left the classroom. Kirishima, we only have 2 days. He said in surprise. Aizawa, make your decision efficiently, that's all. He said as he closed the door to the classroom. After a few minutes of everyone reviewing their applications they started talking. Mina, hey, you've already decided which agency to go to. She said, leaning back in her seat. Mineta, I'll go with Mount Lady. He said with a thumbs up. Tsuyu, Mineta-kun, you're thinking about something perverted, aren't you? She said, passing by him. Mineta, of course not. He said offended. Ojiro, Mina, you placed well at the sports festival. It's strange that you haven't received any applications. He said with a finger on his chin. Mina, right? She said dejectedly. Uraka, DEKU-kun, you've already decided. She said, looking at Izuku. But Izuku and Toga didn't even see their requests, they were just talking Toga on Izuku's legs. All four, they're not even interested. They said in unison. Izuku, hey sorry, we were just talking about going to the pool. He said apologetically. Tsuyu, you should focus on internships, Midorilla-kun. She said in her neutral tone. Uraka, I've already decided, I'll go with the battle hero gunhead. She said decisively. Izuku, that's a surprise, you didn't want to be a hero like 13. He said surprised. Uraka, yes, but after seeing Toga fight, I thought that if I act strong, I'll have a better chance of becoming a hero. She said, raising a fist. Toga, then we'll be partners. She said, raising her hand. Uraka, you're going with Gunhead too. She said confused. Toga, exactly, I've already trained with him, but I want him to teach me more of his techniques. She said, smiling. Uraka, great. She said happily. Remember that Tetsu and Kirishima went to the same agency, so I think it's possible to send more than one application. Izuku, that's good, but I don't know which agency I should go to. He said dejectedly. Mina, it should be difficult to choose between so many requests. She said, looking at Izuku's box. Toga, and if you ask AM, he's the #1 hero, and he can definitely help you. She said, a little thoughtfully. Izuku, if you're right, I'll ask him at lunchtime. He said, a little more animated. Classes continued normally until lunchtime. Izuku went to look for AM and Toga left with Momo and her friends. Izuku, let's see where AM can be, he said it in his thoughts. He was walking while thinking about where AM could be until he bumped into someone. Izuku, sorry. He said standing up. Mirio, I was distracted anyway. He said it anyway, standing up. Izuku, who are you? He said confused. Mirio, hello, I'm Mirio Takara, a third-year student in the hero class. He said with a smile. Izuku, so you're my senpai, I'm Izuku Midorilla, a first-year student also from the hero course. He said, also smiling. Mirio, nice to meet you. He said happily. Izuku, senpai doesn't know where AM is, I have something important to ask him. He said looking at Mirio. Mirio, I'm also looking for him and I think he's in the teacher's lounge. He said looking at Izuku. The two went to the teacher's lounge and indeed AM was there. Izuku, I have a question. Which agency should I go to? He said, waiting for an answer. AM, I was just going to see him to recommend a hero, he was my teacher, his name is Gran Torino. He said trembling. Izuku, great, he must be really strong that he's even shaking. He said mockingly. AM, he's certainly fast, but he's very strict. She said, trying to hide her fear. Mirio, sorry AM, I've already decided, but we can talk about this later. He said, trying to hide the OFA. AM, if we go to my workroom, young Midorilla can join us. He said, standing up from his chair. Mirio, but it wasn't a secret AM, he said surprised. AM, yes, it is, but young Midorilla already knows that. He said, solving Mirio's doubt. Izuku, I can imagine what this is about. Let's go before the break ends. He said, following Mirio and AM. The three of them went to a room where they were alone and there Mirio began to tell AM about his decision. Mirio, first I accept your power, I want to save as many people as I can and with your power the number of lives I can save will increase. He said with a Tin style smile. AM, that's how you talk, young Tagata, here, eat it. He said, giving him a hair. Mirio, hey? He said disgusted and confused. AM, well, to inherit my gift, you need to acquire my DNA, and the best way would be to eat one of my hairs. She said, looking at Mirio. Mirio grabbed AM's hair and quickly ate it. Mirio, it tastes like chicken. He said, still a little disgusted. AM, young Midorilla can give young Tagata some advice. He said with a smile. Izuku, of course, Mirio, the OFA is like an accumulation of power, you have to imagine it as a percentage so you can't break your bones. He said, activating the OFA. Mirio, hey? You have it too? He said surprised. Izuku, yes, one of my quirks abilities allows me to copy quirks. He said smiling. Mirio, that's great, I want to fight you someday. He said with a challenging smile. During the rest of the break, Izuku explained a little about how to use the OFA until the break ended and he returned to class. Already in class. Toga, hey Izu-kun, you already know which hero you're going with. She said in a whisper. Izuku, yes, AM told me to go with a hero named Gran Torino. He said it in a whisper. Toga, and who is that? She said confused. Izuku, I don't know haha but when AM mentioned it he started to tremble. This is going to be fun. He said laughing. Aizawa, Midorilla out. He said pointing to the hallway. Izuku, but Aizawa. He said with a sad face. Aizawa, but nothing, outside. He said activating his quirk. Toga, haha come on Izu-kun you're interrupting classes. She said laughing. Aizawa, Toga you're equal outside. He said with his quirk activated. Izuku, haha come on Miko-chan you're interrupting the class. He said laughing. The class also started laughing but were interrupted by Aizawa. Aizawa, silence. And you guys get out now. He said seriously. The two of them left and stayed that way until classes ended. Time skip. It was already Monday and everyone had already chosen which agency they were going to go to, but we will focus only on Izuku. Izuku, if AM had told me that Gran Torino's house was so far away, I would have chosen another hero. He said dejectedly. Toga, don't complain, look, your train has already arrived. If you don't want to be so late, you have to go now. She said, waving goodbye. Izuku, it's like you want me to leave. He said, feigning sadness. Toga, exactly haha, bye Izu-kun. She said with a smile. Izuku, goodbye Miko-chan, see you in a few days. He said as he entered the train. After a long journey Izuku arrived at Gran Torino's house in the afternoon and the moon could already be seen. Izuku, well, I'm here, according to AM's instructions, it's here. He said, opening the door. Izuku opened the door but only found an old man apparently dead. Izuku, rest in peace, sorry for being late. He said, joining his hands as if he were about to pray. GT, I'm not dead. He said, standing up. Izuku, ha. You're alive. He said surprised. GT, and who are you? He said in a confused tone. Izuku, I'm Midorilla Izuku from UA Academy, he said in a military pose. GT, who? He said, putting his hands over his ears. Izuku, Midorilla Izuku. He said more forcefully. GT, who are you? He said trembling. Izuku, I knew he was old but this is excessive. He said it in his thoughts. The two stared at each other until Izuku wanted to make a call. Izuku, excuse me, I'm going to make a call. He said taking out his cell phone. Izuku was about to make a call but turned back to see GT and saw that he was opening his suit. GT, fire the OFA at me, I want to see how well you handle it. He said, looking at the suit. Izuku, why, so suddenly? He said it in his thoughts. GT, it's a nice suit. He said, closing the briefcase containing the suit. Izuku, hey? Excuse me, but. He was about to continue speaking but was interrupted. GT, who are you? He said, looking at the green-haired man. Izuku, it's useless. He said in his thoughts. Izuku was going to leave but couldn't because he had to dodge a kick from GT. GT, I saw the sports festival, how you use the OFA and apparently you don't have control over it. I'll use these days to teach you how to control it a little, so put on your suit. He said with a smile. Izuku, excuse me GT, but I can control the OFA by percentages. He said, activating the OFA. GT, hey? And why didn't you wear it to the sports festival? He said, confused. Izuku, I don't know. He said laughing. GT, well then your training will change. He said pointing at Izuku. Izuku, hi. And what am I going to do? He said confused. GT, I understand you have several quirks, so you're going to try to enhance their power with the OFA. She said, looking at Izuku with a smile. Izuku, that hadn't occurred to me, right when we started. He said excitedly. GT, now, put on your suit and fight. He said, pointing at the briefcase. Izuku put on his suit and started fighting with GT. Izuku starts launching several attacks with his air quirk but he couldn't hit GT. GT, come on kid, use the OFA at the same time. He said while dodging attacks. Izuku began to channel chakra, okay no, Izuku began to use the OFA and his aerokinesis quirk and when he launched an attack, it was stronger and faster, almost hitting GT. GT, that's a great attack but. He said looking back. Izuku, sorry, I think I got excited. He said, looking at a broken wall. GT, don't worry, but since it's not difficult to increase the power of your attacks, tomorrow we'll go to Hasu so you can fight villains. Izuku fixed GT's wall and needless to say, he was surprised but after an explanation, night came. Izuku, well, it's not difficult to mix the OFA with another quirk, but how about combining them in my katana? He said, looking at his katana. Izuku tried to combine the OFA and his pyrokinesis quirk into the katana but upon contact with fire it melted. Izuku's fire without the OFA is bright red, with the OFA it is blue but if he trains more he can turn his flames black. Izuku, shit. I should ask Hatsume-san for a new katana, a stronger one. Izuku returned to GT's house and after a call with Toga explaining everything he had done that day, he fell asleep. The next morning we can see Izuku getting up and going to the room where he fought with GT yesterday. Izuku, good morning GT, what time are we going on patrol? He said excitedly. GT, good morning, Zygote. In the meantime, tonight you're going to practice controlling your seizures. He said, opening a package. Izuku, what's that? I asked, pointing at the package. GT, for some reason my blender was broken so I ordered one yesterday. She said taking out the blender. The two started preparing breakfast but Izuku kept staring at the blender. GT, what's wrong, brat? He said, confused. Izuku, I got it, I'm the blender. He said pointing at the blender. GT, no, you're not, have you gone crazy? He said, looking at the green-haired boy. Izuku, you don't understand me, yesterday I only activated my two quirks at the same time but if I want to have better effectiveness you need to mix them, unify them. He said excitedly. GT, it took less time than I expected. He said in his mind with a smile. Izuku, if you understand me GT? He said confused for not receiving an answer from the old man. GT, yeah kid, then let's train until you can master that technique. He said smiling. Izuku, hi, he said it in a military pose. GT, fine, but let's have breakfast first. She said as she continued cooking. Izuku, yes. He said it anyway, going back to cooking. The two finished breakfast and began Izuku's training. Izuku, it doesn't work GT, I don't know how to unify my quirks. He said trying to mix his quirks. GT, don't worry, kid, you have all day to train. He said, activating his quirk to go attack Izuku. Izuku, I'm starting to understand why AM is afraid of him. He said while dodging several attacks. The two continued training Izuku trying to unify his quirks and GT attacking Izuku who was already a little hurt because he received several attacks from GT. GT, Zygote, we need to rest. You're hurt. He said, looking at the green-haired man with concern. Izuku, don't worry GT, I can heal myself. He said healing himself. GT, wow, that quirk of yours is amazing. He said, looking at Izuku. Izuku, yes, he is very powerful and at the same time very dangerous. He said with a serious look. GT, don't worry about that, boy. You have your teachers to help you, not to mention that blonde girl you like. He said, looking at Izuku mockingly. Izuku, yes I like it a lot since I was little, it has helped me even when my quirk had not yet developed. He said with a nostalgic smile. GT, can you tell me? He said curiously. Izuku, sure, but it can be boring. He said, sitting on the floor. Izuku began to tell him his entire story when he was a child and still couldn't use his quirk until now. He also told him about his quirk's abilities and what quirks he has. Needless to say, GT was surprised not only by the green-haired boy's power but also by his story. GT, that's surprising, kid, not because of your power, you never stopped thinking about being a hero even after society excluded you for not knowing your quirk. He said surprised. Izuku, it's not that bad, I was a kid, I didn't know what was going on, I thought everything was normal, but then I met Miko-chan and everything changed. He said smiling. GT, you're amazing, kid, even with all that power, and you're not arrogant or looking for fame or money, you just want to help people. He said, smiling. Izuku, I'm not interested in being famous, I'll help people because it feels good to do so. He said with a smile. Toga, and I know you'll save as many lives as you can. She said as she entered GT's house. Izuku, hey? Miko-chan, what are you doing here? Weren't you going to go with Gunhead? He said, confused. Toga, yes, but she told me she already knew her techniques and would be taking on these internships to train Uraka. She said this in a happy tone. Izuku, haha, it seems you're happy. He said smiling. Toga, of course I'm going to spend the internship with you and that makes me happy. She said while hugging Izuku. GT, yeah, it's a nice reunion, but Gunhead hasn't said anything to me. He said, looking at Toga. Toga, are you sure? He told me I could go with Izu-kun. She said smiling. GT, wait, I have to make a call. He said as he walked outside. The two continued talking, Izuku telling Toga what his training consisted of and Toga giving Izuku advice to improve. Meanwhile GT was on a call with Gunhead. GT, explain yourself, Gunhead. Why did you send your student with me? He said seriously. Gunhead, calm down GT, just training the other one got a little difficult and since you were going to patrol today I thought you could take her so she could gain some experience. He said trying to calm GT down. GT, I understand, but let me know beforehand next time. He said, hanging up the call. GT returned to the room but was surprised to see how Izuku changed his training and was shaping his fire. GT, hey brat, why did you change your training? He said confused. Izuku, well, I had explained to Miko-chan that my katana broke and she gave me an idea to shape my fire and thus make it a katana. He said while grabbing a fire katana. GT, and it worked? He said looking at Izuku. Izuku, no, an ice one might be fine, but a fire one is impossible, I can't grab it, it's like a liquid. He said, making the fire katana disappear. GT, let's forget about that and get ready, we're going to Hasu. he said with a smile. Izuku/Toga, hi, they said, going to Izuku's room. The two of them, upon arriving at Izuku's room, began to talk again. Toga, GT's house is a bit small, she said, looking around the room. Izuku, yes, haha, but since you're going to stay, this will be your room, I'll sleep in the living room, he said with a smile. Toga, no, you're going to sleep with me, she said, approaching Izuku. Izuku, but it wouldn't be uncomfortable, the bed isn't very big, he said, stepping back. Toga, no problem, we used to sleep together, it won't be much of a difference, she said, cornering Izuku. Izuku, it would be awkward. We used to sleep together because we were kids, but we're grown up now and we should. He was about to continue talking, but Toga interrupted him with a kiss. Toga, I want to sleep with you. Toga, I want to sleep with you, she said, smiling. Izuku, fine, but only until the internship is over, he said, hiding his face. After that, the two finished changing and went out with GT and were on the bullet train. Extra, look, that building exploded, he said, pointing out the window. Izuku, it'll be a fire, he said, confused. Izuku was going to get up to see what was happening, but at that moment a hero entered the train, breaking it. Hero, what the hell? Was interrupted by a blow from a Nomu. Izuku, it's a Nomu, he said, surprised. GT, both of you stay here, he said as he went to hit the Nomu. Toga, wait, those things are strong, she said while going with GT. Izuku, what's going on? He said, seeing a lot of smoke coming out of a place. GT had gone to fight the Nomu and Toga and Izuku followed him. Extra, and the heroes, he said, scared, looking at a Nomu. The Nomu was about to attack the extra, but GT hit it, sending it flying. GT, I told you brats to stay on the train, he said, looking at the couple behind him. Toga, I'm sorry, Grandpa, but we should help. Those things are tough, he said, smiling. Kensei, Midorilla-san, it's good to see you. Have you seen my brother? He was with me a few moments ago, but he disappeared? He said worriedly. Izuku, Ida? Won't you seek revenge against the hero killer? He said it in his mind. Kensei, Midorilla-san? He said, looking at Izuku, who remained silent. Izuku didn't say anything and just started running. Toga, seeing him, also ran after him. Toga, Izu-kun, what happened? You ran off without saying anything? She said while running. Izuku, I think Ida is looking for the hero killer, he said as he began to fly. Toga, wait, Izu-kun, I can't fly, he said, running. Izuku, let's split up. If any of us find Ida, send his location, he said, flying quickly. Toga, I wish I could fly, she said, running. The two split up and searched for about 5 minutes but hadn't found Ida. Toga, where could he have gone? I thought since Izu-kun cured his brother, he wouldn't want revenge anymore. She was about to continue her thoughts, but she was interrupted by a scream. Ida, leave him, he shouted loudly. Stain was about to kill the hero native, but Toga tried to hit him, which he dodged but had to back away. Toga, Ida, are you okay? She said, looking at him on the ground. Ida, yeah, don't worry, he said, trying to move. Toga, what happened? I thought that since Izu-kun cured your brother you were no longer going to seek revenge? She said, confused but without stopping, looking at Stain. Ida, I didn't come for revenge, I was with my brother, but I saw that hero about to be killed by him and I came to help, he said, looking at Stain. Stain, yes, and that's why I was going to let him live, he said, drawing his swords. Toga, that's good, Ida, you've matured, he said, taking out his combat blades. Ida, thanks, but don't let him cut you. He only gave me a scratch, but I can't move, he said, looking at Toga, worried. Toga, thanks for the warning, but I know I can't win, she said, preparing to fight. Ida, then go away, get help, he said worriedly. Toga, I can't. If I leave them they'll die. Besides, I already called Izu-kun. I just need to buy time, she said, throwing her cell phone. Stain, damn brat, well I have limited time, I should go, but I'll kill you first, he said, running towards Toga. Toga could barely dodge the attack and also began to try to hit him but couldn't. Toga, stay still, he said while throwing punches. Stain, you're a good girl, but you're not going to beat me, he said, throwing small needles. Toga blocked the needles with her blades and attacked Stain again. The two exchanged blows, and after a few seconds Toga threw her blades and Satan also threw a blade, putting away her katana. Both attacks managed to connect, but Stain's damage was less and he quickly grabbed the blade and licked Toga's blood, making her unable to move. "Stain, you fought well, brat, but for getting in my way, you'll have to die," he said, taking out his katana. "Toga, shit, I can't move, it's because of my blood," she said, struggling. Stain quickly lowered his katana, trying to stab Toga in the chest, but when he was millimeters away from doing so, he froze. "Izuku, touch a hair on my head and I'll kill you," he said angrily, approaching Toga. "Ida, Midorilla-kun," he said happily. "Izuku, why are you seeking revenge if I already cured your brother?" he said while curing Toga. "Toga, thank you Izu-kun," she said while still lying on the floor. "Ida, it's not that, I came to help that hero," he said pointing at Native. "Izuku, that's great Ida," he said looking at him with a smile. "Ida, thank you," he said smiling. "Stain, why can't I move?" he said, struggling. "Izuku, I have a telekinesis quirk so I immobilized you," he said looking seriously at Satan. "Stain, let me go, brat," he said, struggling. "Izuku, okay," he said deactivating the telekinesis quirk. "Stain, you stupid brat, you could have handed me over to the heroes, why are you letting me go?" he said confused. "Izuku, I'm not letting you go, I just need an excuse to hit you," he said, creating an ice katana. "Stain, you think you can beat me, you're just dreaming, brat." "Stain, you think you can beat me, you're dreaming, brat." He said it anyway, taking out his katana. The two started a battle with their katanas. Clearly Stain had the advantage but still couldn't hurt Izuku. "Izuku, you're good, it's a shame you're a villain," he said, activating the OFA. "Stain, I'm not a villain, I'm an anti-hero," he said, launching attacks again. "Izuku, if you hurt people who haven't done anything wrong you're a villain no matter if they're heroes," he said dodging attacks. The two attacked again and now they were both evenly matched as Izuku was only using 10% of the OFA. "Stain, this is over now, brat," he said, making a tiny cut to Izuku. "Toga, don't let him drink your blood so he activates his quirk," she said yelling. "Izuku, don't worry Miko-chan and thank you," he said smiling. "Stain, your overconfidence is what will one day kill you," said Izuku drinking blood. "Izuku, your quirk is to immobilize someone by drinking their blood but that doesn't work with me," he said walking toward Stain. "Stain, what? Why? How can you move?" he said, confused and scared. "Izuku, just deactivate your quirk," he said smiling. Izuku just stared at Stain and in a quick move he knocked him out with a single blow. "Toga, you knocked him out with just one hit, you're great," she said smiling. "Izuku, thanks he now let's just wait until they can move," he said smiling. "Ida, I can move now," he said standing up. "Izuku, it'll be simple, you carry Native and I'll carry Toga," he said while carrying Toga on his back. "Ida, fine but what about Stain?" he said confused. "Izuku, don't worry, I'll take him with my telekinesis," he said while making Stain float. The five left the alley and outside they met Endeavor and Todoroki. "Todoroki, hello Midorilla, what are you doing here?" he said confused. "Izuku, we were with GT to gain experience but we ran into him," he said pointing at Stain. "Endeavor, you defeated the hero killer," he said in surprise. "Ida, in fact, Midorilla-kun defeated him with one blow," he said pointing at Izuku. Endeavor and the heroes who had arrived were more than surprised but were brought out of that surprise by a Nomu who tried to take Toga who was asleep. "Izuku, you think I'm going to let you have it that easy?" he said, launching several air attacks, cutting off the Nomu's head. The Nomu fell dead and Toga was about to hit the ground but was caught in Izuku's arms. Some heroes who didn't believe that Izuku alone had defeated Stain swallowed their words and looked at Izuku in amazement. "Izuku, hey Miko-chan, you're not asleep, are you?" he said, looking at Toga. "Toga, no haha but I felt like a princess," she said laughing a little blushing. Izuku just blushed a little and hid his face. "Endeavor, you're amazing, brat, but you're not licensed to use your quirk," he said, approaching Izuku. "Izuku, yes, I know, that's why I'm going to give credit for what I did to GT, he said while looking at Endeavor. Endeavor, you think it's that simple? He said, grabbing Izuku by the collar of his shirt. Izuku, yes, I saved 2 people. Do you think that just because I don't have a license I'm going to let them be killed? Don't be ridiculous. He said, pushing Endeavor. Endeavor, damn brat. He said, activating his flames. Izuku, don't be stupid, I can control fire. He said, extinguishing Endeavor's flames. GT, calm down, kid, and don't worry. I already spoke to the police chief and he agreed to what you proposed. He said, looking at Izuku. Izuku, fine. He said, returning the flames to Endeavor. Endeavor, TSK, we'll see each other again, brat. He said as he left with Todoroki. Ida left with his brother, Native left with the heroes and Toga, Izuku and GT returned to his house. Izuku, thanks GT, even though it was only a week, I was able to improve a lot. He said, grabbing his backpack. GT, I don't think you should thank me, even if you didn't have my help, you would have gotten stronger. You have great potential. He said with a yawn. Izuku, yes, but, thanks to you I was able to confront the hero killer. He said smiling. GT, I didn't do anything, I just took the credit. He said, hitting Izuku. Izuku, and now why is he hitting me? He said rubbing his head. GT, for giving me trouble, since they gave me credit for defeating the hero killer, the newscasters will be looking for interviews. He said in an angry tone. Izuku, haha sorry. He said bowing. Toga, excuse me, GT, this may be a bit of an annoying question, but the name GT is practically unknown. Why? She said, confused. GT, it's because I was never interested in being a hero, I needed to use my quirk freely, that's why I got my license. He said, remembering when he trained AM. Toga, one goal. He said smiling. GT, that's all, I wish you all the best. He said with a small smile. Izuku, sure, bye GT, he said raising his hand. Toga, take care. He said it anyway, raising his hand. GT, brats. Who are you? He said with a silly smile. Izuku, and now he asks? He said looking at GT. Toga, I'm Himiko T but was interrupted by GT. GT, not that. He said with a serious face. Toga, hey? She said confused. Izuku, ha, I'm DEKU. He said smiling. Toga, I understand, I'm Bloody Queen. She said laughing. GT smiled, waved goodbye, and walked into his house. Time skip. Our couple was going to their classroom while they were talking about how Toga could train, but when they entered their classroom they started laughing when they saw Bakugo. Bakugo, don't laugh, I'll kill you. He said angrily. He said angrily 11. Izuku, ha 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 what happened to you Bakugo, that's new. He said laughing. Toga, ha ha going with bestiness would change you. She said laughing. Bakugo, shut up. He said shouting. Izuku, he's back. He said seeing how Bakugo's hair returned to normal. Kaminari, ha ha, hey, changing the subject, what did you do at your internships? He said with a smile. Tsuyu, I was just patrolling, but we caught some smugglers once. She said in her usual tone. Mina, it's amazing, I was just patrolling in Urochako. She said looking at Uraka. Uraka didn't respond and when she saw her she was punching the air. Kaminari, it's a big change for just 1 week. He said looking at Uraka. Mineta, change? You're wrong, Kaminari. Women are demons who hide their true selves, he said, biting his nails. Kaminari, what did you see with Mount Lady? I was just having fun. He said, trying to calm Mineta down. Kirishima, if we talk about those who went through the most, it's those 3. He said looking at Izuku, Toga, and Ida. Kaminari, the hero killer. He said it looking at them. Kirishima, I'm glad you're okay. I heard a retired hero saved you. He said with a smile. Izuku, yeah haha GT is amazing. He said with a nervous smile. I'm just walking into the room like a normal person. He shouted. Toga, that's not normal at all. She said, looking at AM with a smile and a drop of anime-style sweat. Since you're back from your internships, let's see how much you've improved. I'll wait for you at the training camp. She said smiling and leaving the room. Everyone stood watching where AM came out, and after a few seconds they left to get ready and put on their hero suits. When they finished changing, they went to the training camp. AM, okay, guys, for this basic training, we're going to do a rescue run. He said, smiling. Ida, if it's a rescue, we shouldn't go to USJ, he said, raising his hand. AM, that place is for disaster training. Remember what I said? It's a race. You'll be divided into 3 groups of 5 and 1 group of 6. I'll wait at the end. It's a race to see who can rescue me first. She said, reading from a booklet. The groups were chosen by AM, they are the same as in the anime, just add Toga in any of them. She doesn't win, but she doesn't finish last either. AM, okay, first group, go to your places. He said, shouting. Kirishima, guys, who do you think won? He said, pointing at the screen. All, Midorilla. They said in unison. Kirishima, ha, I guess so. He said while looking at the screen. AM, ready, go, I shout with a microphone in my hand. The 4 of them started the race, but Izuku just stood there watching. Kaminari, hey? Midorilla stayed behind, he said in surprise. Momo, he'll be hurt. Remember he fought the hero killer. She said, equally surprised. Toga, no, it's just that he's so confident he's giving them an advantage. She said, looking at the screen showing the race. Kirishima, that's bragging too much, it's for men. He said, raising his fist. Izuku, well, I think it's time. He said, preparing himself. Momo, look, it looks like it's about to move. She said, pointing at the screen. Everyone paid attention to Izuku, no one missed his movements, but everyone remained silent when they no longer saw Izuku. Kirishima, where is it? He said, looking at the screen. Momo, he disappeared. She said, surprised. Toga, there it is, he said, pointing at the screen. AM, it's over, he shouted. Kaminari, that's absurd. He said, looking at Izuku at the finish line. Todoroki, we couldn't even see when it moved. He said, surprised. AM, thanks for saving me. He said, giving Izuku a band. Izuku, hee, thanks. He said, putting on the band. Ida, good job Midorilla-kun. He said, congratulating Izuku. Sero, it's frustrating but you're very fast. He said, looking at Izuku. Mina, I can't believe this. She said, stomping her foot repeatedly. Izuku, ha, thanks. He said, smiling. AM, young Midorilla arrived first, but compared to the beginning of the year, his unique qualities have improved a lot. He said, smiling as always. All 5, thanks AM, we'll get even better. They said in unison. AM, okay, Group 1, you can withdraw. Group 2, get ready. He shouted. Afterwards, the races went by normally and the classes were still normal, so we'll focus on tomorrow's classes. Aizawa, well that's all. Next week there will be exams. In addition to the written exam there will be a practical exam. Remember to study mind and body. He said, leaving the classroom. Kaminari, shit, I didn't study anything. He said, shouting. Mina, me neither. She said, laughing. Mineta, the semester exam will be tough if there's a practical exam too. He said proudly. Kaminari, 10th place in the semester. He said in surprise. Mina, I thought you were one of us. She said, shouting. Kaminari, guys like you are only good if you're idiots. He said, pointing at Mineta. Izuku, Kaminari, Mina, do your best, let's all go to camp together. He said, trying to encourage Mina and Kaminari. Kaminari, that's easy for you, you're 5th in the semester. He said, grabbing Izuku by the neck. Toga, calm down, you just have to study. You have 1 week. She said, smiling. Mina, you can't say anything either, you're the first. She said in a dejected tone. Todoroki, it's hard to fail if you pay attention in class. He said coldly. Momo, I can help you study. She said, smiling. Kaminari/Mina, Yao Momo. They said with a sparkle in their eyes. Momo, but I can't help practically. She said with a depressive aura. Jiro, I don't know about them, but can I join? I'm having trouble with equations. He said, holding up a book. Sero, me too, you help me with classical. He said, clasping his hands as if he were about to pray. Oh Jiro, there's still a lot I don't understand, too. He said with a nervous smile. Momo, of course, she said excitedly. Mina, thanks, I want to see what your house looks like. She said, raising her hands. Momo, then let's have a study session at my residence. She said smiling. All five, yes, they shouted in unison. Izuku, looks like everyone made study groups, even Bakugo. He said looking at the Muslim. Toga, yes ha, but we don't need to study, how about we go to the beach? She said smiling. Izuku, of course. He said, stroking Toga's head. Classes passed naturally until lunchtime. Izuku was with Toga, Ida, Tsuyu, and Uraka. Uraka, the practical exam is scary because you don't know what you'll do. She said while eating. Ida, the text will contain what we learned in class. He said it while still eating. Izuku, I'll manage that one, but what are we going to do in practice? He said, looking up at the ceiling. Uraka, I'm also worried about the writing. She said, looking at the ceiling as well. Tsuyu, the essay will contain everything we saw in the first semester. That's all Aizawa-sensei will say. She said this while eating an apple. Toga, combat classes, rescue classes, and the basics. He said while eating. Izuku, besides studying, we must be in good physical condition. He stopped when he felt a blow. Monoma, sorry, your head is so big I accidentally hit you. He said with a tray of food. Izuku, don't worry, but just go away. He said with a serious look. Monoma, I heard you fought the hero killer, your kind only attracts trouble, at some point we'll get involved, how scary, he said laughing. Izuku, if you're so scared, just walk away. If a villain scares you, you shouldn't be a hero. He said, going back to eating. Monoma, your little brain doesn't understand, we're still students and attracting trouble puts our lives at risk. But he fainted XD. Kendo, excuse this boy, his heart is a little different. He said, grabbing Monoma by his shirt. Izuku, his heart? More like his brain. He said, standing up from the table. Kendo, you were talking earlier about what the practical exam will be like, right? It looks like it'll involve robot fights. He said with a hand on his head. Izuku, thanks, I suppose you found out from a senpai but it's not necessary. I know one of the big three, I'll ask him directly. He said as he left the dining room. Toga, wait for me Izu-kun, I'm going with you, I want to meet him too. She said following Izuku. Uraka, one of the big three? She said, confused. Kendo, they're the top 3 students at the academy, and they're also third years. She said in surprise. Tsuyu, Midorilla-kun knows so many people, it's surprising. She said with her neutral tone. Ida, it's surprising. He said while eating. Lunchtime passed normally. Izuku and Toga went with Mirio, who told them that there are different practical exams. It can be fighting robots, fighting teachers, and an exam to rescue civilians. Class 1A. Kaminari, that's great, if we fight robots the exam will be easy. He said smiling. Mina, yes, I can melt them with my acid. She said smiling. Sero, we just need Yaoi Orosu to help us study. He said smiling. Izuku, don't get too confident. There are 3 types of exams, robot battles, teacher battles, and a rescue exam. Any of those could happen to us. He said with a pencil. Mina, how do you know? She said, wiping away her smile. Izuku, a friend from 3rd grade told me. He said smiling. Kaminari, but we might have to fight robots, so we have to have faith. He said with a nervous smile. Toga, ha, get ready, you don't just need to study. She said laughing. Bakugo, hey DEKU, you've gotten stronger, but the grades on these exams will be individual. I'll defeat you without a doubt. He said, pointing at Izuku. Izuku, I doubt it, the only thing you beat me on is writing. He said seriously. Bakugo, TSK, I'll kill you. He said as he left the classroom. Kirishima, it's been a while since I've been this intense. He said, rubbing his head. Kaminari, impatience? Or is it hatred? He said, looking at the door. The week is usually spent with Momo helping Kaminari, Sero, Jiro, Mina, and Ojiro study. Izuku studies and trains a little, but spends most of his time with Toga. Mina, thank you Yao Momo. She said raising her hands. Kaminari, at least I answered everything. He said with a smile. Jiro, we wouldn't have made it without you. He said happily. Sero, exactly, Thanks Yaoyorosu-san. He said happily. Ojiro, thanks too Yaoyorosu-san. He said bowing. Momo, we're not friends after all. She said happily. Izuku, well, the 3 days of written exam are over, now the practical exam begins. He said excitedly. Toga, you're excited. She said with a smile. Izuku, yeah haha, I hope we get to fight the teachers. He said happily. Kaminari, you're crazy. If we lose, we won't be able to go to camp. He said, trembling. Izuku, just defeat them. He said raising a finger. Mina, it must be easy for you, but we only have one quirk, so you have to think about us. She said, pretending to shed tears. Izuku, Miko-chan is also excited to fight against teachers. He said pointing at Toga. Toga, I'd actually like to fight robots. She said smiling. Izuku, hey? Why? He said confused. Toga, it's easier. She said laughing. Izuku, it's more boring. He said, faking a yawn. Izuku, I still have hope that we'll have to fight the teachers. He said while walking. Toga, you're very confident. She said while hitting him. Aizawa, okay, everyone's here, so let's start the practical exam. He said, looking at his students. Izuku, I told you we have to fight the teachers. He said excitedly. All, shit. Aizawa, silence. It's possible to fail this exam, so don't make any mistakes, he said smiling sadistically. Nezu, they will form teams of 2, but since there are 21 students, one group will be 3. He said while drinking coffee. Izuku, if you like, I can go alone. He said smiling confidently. Nezu, I know your abilities, young Midorilla, but you should let go of that overconfidence. He said, looking seriously at Izuku. Toga, haha, I told you, the director even scolded you greater than, she said laughing. Izuku, see. Nezu, well, we've already chosen the teams and they are these. Yaoyorosu and Todoroki vs Aizawa, Midorilla, Toga, Bakugo vs AM, Dato and Kirishima vs Cementos, Asui and Tokoyami vs Ectoplasm, Ida and Ojiro vs Power Loader, Aoyama and Uraka vs 13, Kaminari and Ashido vs Nezu, Jiro and Kota vs Present Mike, Shoji and Hagakure vs Snipe, Mineta and Sero vs Midnight. Izuku, great, I'm going with you Miko-chan, but the problem is Bakugo. He said, looking at Bakugo. Toga, I don't think he's going to help us. He said it anyway, looking at Bakugo. Bakugo, I don't need your help, I'll defeat AM alone, he said shouting. Izuku, yes, we'll let you go and see if I can defeat you quickly, then Miko-chan and I will go help. He said, turning his back on Bakugo. Bakugo, shiny, he said trying to hit Izuku. Izuku just made a wall of air and kept walking leaving a pissed off Bakugo. Nezu, shut up. The exam will last 30 minutes, he said, making himself a cup of coffee. Aizawa, one last thing, the teachers will be using these devices. He said, taking out some wristbands and anklets. Momo, excuse me. Aizawa-sensei, but what are they? She said confused. Aizawa, they're ultra-compressed weights, this will make us heavier and limit our movements. He said with his bored tone. Nezu, all teachers will use it except AM, he said while drinking coffee. Aizawa, but director, AM would be the most troublesome, he should carry more of these weights. He said with a look of disgust. Nezu, if those two are in trouble, they'll definitely have to work together. He said it in a low voice so only Aizawa could hear it. Aizawa, understood. He said, returning to his usual expression. The fights are going to be like in the anime except Aoyama told Uraka if she likes Ida, I'm only going to narrate the fight between Izuku, Toga, and Bakugo. Toga, well, it's our turn. Besides, AM is going to fight with everything, so you guys should stop fighting and work as a team. She said, watching Izuku and Bakugo glare at each other. Bakugo, shut up, I don't need them, they'll just get in my way. He said without taking his eyes off Izuku. Izuku, who are you calling a defective Muslim nuisance? He said grabbing Bakugo by his shirt. Bakugo, you useless bastard. He said grabbing Izuku by the face. Toga, this'll be harder than I thought. Toga, this'll be harder than I thought. She said with a hand to her face. Present Mike, last group, start. He said excitedly. Izuku, okay, let's go, Miko-chan. He said, stroking Toga's head. Toga, yes, I'm going. She said, looking at Izuku. Bakugo ran towards the field followed by our couple. The three were walking on alert in case AM appears. Toga, we need a plan. She said, breaking the silence. Bakugo, I don't need a plan, just don't get in the way. He said angrily. Toga, who do you think AM is? He's going to fight with all his strength. We can't beat him alone. She said, approaching Bakugo. Bakugo turned sharply and wanted to hit Toga, but a blow sent him flying. Izuku, dare to touch a hair on his head and I swear the last thing you'll see is my fist slamming into your face. He said, looking at Bakugo intimidatingly. Bakugo, damn, you're just an insect. He said, going towards Izuku with his explosions. Toga, stop fighting already. She said angrily. Izuku, TSK. He said, going towards Toga. Bakugo, TSK, just don't bother us. He said, moving away from both of them. In the observation room. Recovery girl, I doubt those two can work as a team. She said, looking at a screen. Returning to the field. AM, here I go. He said, preparing to punch in the air. AM released his fist, causing a huge gust of air that destroyed the buildings in its path, leaving the field flat. Izuku, shit, you're right, we shouldn't take AM lightly. He said, seeing the damage he caused. Toga, yes, I know. Look. She said, pointing ahead. Bakugo, what is this bullying? He said it in his mind. AM, if you think this is a test, you'll regret it, although literally, it is a test, he said, stomping his foot on the ground, generating another gust of air. Izuku, I'll go all out AM, don't underestimate me. He said, shouting. AM, I'll still go all out, so don't hold back, heroes. He said with an intimidating look. Toga, don't forget about me. She said behind AM's back. AM, I didn't do it, young Toga. He said, trying to hit him. Izuku, careful Miko-chan, we need to proceed with caution. He said, trying hard to maintain the air wall he put up to protect Toga. AM, ingenious young Midorilla, but I'm not going to hold back. He said, pushing harder, breaking through the air wall, but Toga had already left. Toga, now you understand, we need to work as a team. She said, looking at Bakugo. Izuku, okay, I understand, let's go Bakugo. He said, running towards AM. Bakugo, don't give me orders. He said without moving. Izuku, cooperate Bakugo, I'm doing this to pass the exam. He said while still running towards AM. Bakugo, I'll pass the exam without your help. He said angrily. Izuku didn't say anything anymore because he was already in front of AM. Izuku beat AM but only made him back up a little. AM, not bad young Midorilla, but thanks to the fact that you healed my wound my strength doubled. He said, hitting Izuku. Izuku took the full blow, causing great damage and sending him flying. Izuku, damn, his hand is heavy. He said while healing himself. Toga, let's go, we have to escape and think of a plan. She said, looking at Izuku. Izuku, you're right. He said, turning around and preparing to fly with Toga. Toga, let's go Bakugo, you can't beat him. He said, shouting. Bakugo, shut up and die. He said as he went towards AM with his explosions. Bakugo was charging a big explosion to hit AM, but when he got closer he couldn't throw the explosion because AM grabbed him by the face. Bakugo tried to get out of the grip by giving several direct explosions, but AM didn't even move. AM, if you really plan on beating me, you'll have to work as a team. He said, throwing Bakugo to the ground. Izuku, Miko-chan, go get Bakugo and run away. I'll give you time. He said as he was going to hit AM. AM, come on young Midorilla, I want to see what you're capable of. He said as he went towards Izuku. The two began to exchange blows, but AM clearly had the advantage. Izuku, so this is the power of the number one hero. He said while throwing ice spikes. AM, that's right, young Midorilla, so you know you can't beat me. He said, punching the air, generating a strong air current that destroyed the ice spikes and sent Izuku flying. Izuku, shit, I think I need a strategic retreat. He said while flying away, hiding behind a smoke screen. In the observation room. Kaminari, Midorilla is amazing, he was able to hold his own against AM. He said this looking at the screen. Kirishima, that's a man's game, but AM can't hold back. He said, looking at the screen. Recovery girl, if those two don't fight together, they'll fail the exam. They have 20 minutes left. She said, looking at the screen. In the field. AM, he won't escape, young Midorilla. He's already gone. He said dejectedly. Izuku, well, I think I lost it. He said while looking at Toga. Toga, yes, but we need to heal Bakugo to win. He said, pointing at the Muslim. Izuku, sometimes I hate that you're right. He said while healing Bakugo. Bakugo, I didn't ask for your help, DEKU. He said standing up. Izuku, no, but we need you to pass the exam. It's a win-win situation. He said with a serious look. Bakugo, screw you, if I need to help you I'd rather lose. He said yelling. Izuku, you know something, you disappoint me. Before you treated me like shit, I admired you. You always wanted to win and be the best, and seeing you say you'd rather lose makes me see that I was wrong. I admired a coward. He said, looking at Bakugo. Toga, Bakugo, you always said that a hero wins in the end. If you don't want to help us, let's change the plan. Use us so you can win. She said, looking at Bakugo. Bakugo, shut up, I'll only say it once, we can't run away from AM, so I'll use you, DEKU. The two of us will fight against AM and you just escape while we distract him. He said with tears in his eyes. Toga, okay, Izu-kun, do what he says. He said, looking seriously at Izuku. Izuku, hi, he said it in a military pose. The two of them went out to fight AM and Toga went the other way to surround them. Bakugo, where are you looking, AM? He said, throwing an explosion at the hero's back. AM, so there you were, young Bakugo. He said, receiving the explosion, which caused him no harm. Bakugo, DEKU, he said, shouting. Izuku appeared behind AM with Bakugo's glove. Izuku, sorry AM, he said, removing the safety of the glove, causing a huge explosion. AM, by not reacting quickly, received the explosion, which caused damage but not much. AM, so an agreement for young Toga to escape is a good plan, but you hate each other and can't work together. He said, getting up from the ground because the explosion made him kneel. Izuku, you know you're right, I hate him, but Miko-chan ordered me to work with him, I'm not going to disappoint her. He said, running towards AM. AM, your determination is admirable, young Midorilla, but, he couldn't finish because he flew away. Bakugo, you're right, I hate him too, but a hero never loses. He said with a raised hand and his glove destroyed. In the observation room. Kaminari, seriously, they're working together. He said in surprise. Mina, not only that, they could have hurt AM, she said, equally surprised. In the field. AM, good job, you're cooperating even reluctantly just to confront me, that's why. He said, smiling. Bakugo tried to explode the glove that Izuku returned to him, but AM quickly destroyed the glove and sent Izuku flying with another blow. AM, I'll try too. He said, looking at Bakugo. Bakugo, overwhelming speed and destructive force, how the hell can we defeat him? He said with an angry grimace. AM began to throw several blows at Bakugo, the latter tried to defend himself but it was useless, the blows AM gave hurt him too much and after a few seconds in which AM did not stop hitting, Bakugo fell unconscious and very hurt. AM, young Bakugo fought excellently, but he can't defeat me. He said, grabbing Bakugo and throwing him away. Izuku, he doesn't, but I do. He said, grabbing Bakugo in the air. AM, he couldn't beat me with the help of young Bakugo who makes him believe he can do it alone. He said looking at Izuku. Izuku, easy, I'm stronger than you. He said while healing Bakugo. AM ran towards Izuku to hit him but before the blow hit Izuku he disappeared. AM, what? He said, surprised. Izuku, you're fast, but I'm faster. He said, hitting AM. In the observation room. Kaminari, what happened? He said in surprise. Kirishima, Izuku sent AM flying with a punch. He said in surprise. Mina, they weren't supposed to be able to even touch AM, she said in surprise. The others could not articulate a word from the shock, not even the teachers. In the field. AM, if you were so strong, why did you force yourself to work as a team? He said, spitting blood. Toga, I can answer that. She said it behind AM. Young Toga? Wasn't your plan to entertain me while you escape? He said, confused. Toga, no, we just wanted Bakugo to reconcile with Izu-kun. She said, smiling. Izuku, you see I know Bakugo's potential, I know he can be a great hero. If he lets himself be consumed by hatred, he'll waste that potential. He has to understand that the world doesn't revolve around him. He said as he approached Toga, that's the plan, he told me at the beginning of the exam. He said, smiling. Izuku, when I stroked his head, I passed my plan directly to his head, that's why no one heard it. He said, standing in front of haha, you have a big heart, young Midorilla. He said, smiling and standing up. Toga, you're right. She said, smiling. Okay, young Midorilla, let's finish the exam. He said, preparing to hit. Izuku, sure, Miko-chan, step back a little. He said, looking at Toga with a smile. Izuku made a cube that surrounded them both with the telekinesis and aerokinesis quirks. The two hit with 100% of the OFA. Izuku also hit it with 100% of the OFA, but he enhanced it with his improvement ability and with the pyrokinesis quirk. The two blows connected, generating a massive air current which would have destroyed the entire training camp, but the cube that Izuku made kept the disasters to a minimum. The current was so great that the cameras were destroyed. The teachers did not know what happened and scared they quickly went to the training camp, and upon arrival they were surprised to see an fainted in his lizardfish form next to Izuku. Izuku, I think I won. He said, smiling. Aizawa, yes, I think so. He said, impressed by the destruction the two of them caused. Izuku, by the way, when Bakugo wakes up, tell him we won because Toga escaped. He said, smiling. Nezu, don't worry young Midorilla, we'll do that. He said, getting back on his feet. Toga, well there were no injuries so we left. She said, taking Izuku's hand. Izuku, goodbye. He said, waving with his free hand. Aizawa, wait, there are still classes left. He said, activating his quirk. Izuku, sorry Mom Caterpillar but I'm tired, I'm going home. He said, starting to fly. Aizawa, liar, your quirk also makes you recover energy. He said, activating his bandages. Izuku grabbed Toga princess style and quickly flew out of the academy. Nezu, leave them alone, Aizawa. They deserve a break. Classes are over for today. You can go home. He said the last bit through a microphone that not even the author knows where it came from.